Welcome to Fruity Knitting. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Andrew, and this is episode 58.
Wasn't that castle brilliant? And the fantastic music was Vivaldi's Four Seasons. If you haven't heard of Vivaldi before, he was an Italian composer who's most famous for his group of 4 violin concertos, each expressing a different season of the year. And what you just heard was winter. So Vivaldi composed the Four Seasons in 1721, and the castle ruin Liebenstein that you just saw was built sometime in the 1300s. So go back and watch that scenery all again and listen to that fantastic music if you want. Andrew and I had a lot of fun filming that footage a few weekends ago when we took a trip to Erfurt to interview today's feature guest, Åsa Tricosa. So Åsa is a Swedish designer living in Germany, and she's recently published a book all about her signature sweater construction technique called Ziggurat. And Ziggurat is a top-down, completely seamless method that aims to give knitters confidence to knit shapely, well-fitting garments in a variety of gauges and yarn weights, and like I said, without a single seam.
Yep. We're also heading to Vermont to meet the shepherdess Amanda from Prado de Lana Yarns, and we're featuring Canadian designer and yarn dyer Debbie Sullivan from Sweet Paprika Designs in new releases. Our daughter Madeline is going to join us to show us her completed cardigan, and Andrea has a new project. So let's start with under construction.
With me. So I'm starting a new design by Norah Gaughan. It's my first time knitting a Norah Gaughan pattern. It's called More, and it's taken from the Brooklyn Tweed Fall 16 collection. The pattern recommends using the Shelter, Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, which is a woolen spun worsted weight yarn, and I'm using the Mayak Baby Yak Medium, which is a worsted spun and I think around a DK weight yarn. And we interviewed Paola and Andrea from Mayak back in episode 56. It's a fascinating interview to listen to hear them talk about working with the Tibetan nomads and their yaks. Andrea is a vet, and he travels to Tibet around 5 times a year to help them with their animals and also to help harvest the fibre. So after the interview, I was just so impressed with their knowledge and their work, and I was super curious to see what a baby yak yarn, like a pure baby yak yarn, would feel like to knit with. And I was also really curious because of the way they spoke about the spinning mills that they're working with. So they're working with small artisan Italian spinning mills in the Biellese area, which is the Italian side of the Alps. And there they have a 300-year-old culture of producing really top quality yarns and textiles. So I was curious and I ordered some, and this is it. So like I said, this is worsted spun and it's 3-ply. And I really didn't know much about plies before, what plying meant. So I've been reading up a bit about it. And so for those of you who also don't know about what plying a yarn does, a plied yarn is one where multiple strands of already spun yarn are put together and twisted in the opposite direction to that in which the original strands of yarn were twisted. So plying a yarn changes the structure and how it looks. It's not just a matter of adding more plies together to make the yarn thicker. It actually changes its behavior by doing that. And that's because twist gives strength, and multiple directions of twist give more strength. Yeah. So plying a yarn will make it stronger. It also makes it more durable, and that's because you're tucking away some of the inside surfaces of the yarn into the middle of the yarn, so it's away from the wear and tear on the outside. Another thing that plying will do is help prevent your garment from twisting on the bias or going skew-if. So if you're knitting the body without seams in the round, or the arms in the round, and you're finding that it's wanting to twist a bit, using a plied yarn is going to help you
Avoid
against
problem.
that. Yeah. And the other thing that I read that I thought was very interesting is that there is a difference in the outside surface depending on how many plies you've got in a yarn. So 3 plies or more will give a much more smoother, even surface area than say a 2-ply, and that's because with 2-ply the strands are just twisting around each other. So if you look closely, it'll just be a series of little bumps or like little pearls. But with 3-ply and more, the strands are spiraling around a hollow center. So that actually gives it bounce and a very smooth outside. So it was fun for me to try to look at their yarn and understand why they've done what they've done with it. So baby yak as a fibre is incredibly fine. It's got a micron count of around 17, so it's very close to cashmere. So they've worsted spun it, and that'll make it stronger, and then they've plied it, which is going to make it stronger still and more durable. And it's interesting that they've done a 3-ply because, like I said, it's going to spiral around a hollow curve, a hollow centre core. So that makes the yarn bouncy. I imagine it to be a little bit like a woolen spun yarn, where a woolen spun is gives it more loft, more bounce. So putting 3 plies together is a little bit like that. It's making more like a centre of air in a way. Yeah. So you get a bouncy yarn, but that's a very smooth surface, which is fantastic for stitch definition and cables. So that's why I wanted to pick a cable design to go with it. So the fibre itself is a dark chocolate brown, and I was just trying to think, because it's a beautiful colour, do I want that or do I want one that's dyed?
The natural colour,
yeah. And they don't bleach the original fibres because it's just like bleaching your hair. It does actually slightly damage it. So in the end, I picked this beautiful deep teal colour that almost in some lights can look very close to, it's not black, but it's that dark. And I picked it because for my birthday, Andrew bought me this beautiful shirt, which I totally love. It's a Scottish brand, Gibson and Birkbeck, and this colour goes perfectly with the background colour. It's this deep teal. And I've already knitted the back of it, and so there it is there. And you can see it's actually going to go really beautifully with the shirt. So I can't wait to knit it up and wear it together.
You'll need some cold weather, dolls.
I will. This was also my very first time knitting a Brooklyn tweed pattern, and they're very well written, very meticulous. It's bottom up and in pieces, which I find very straightforward, particularly if you've got a difficult cable design, because it means you're not having to do all of the shaping of the shoulders at the same time, as well as figuring out the pattern. They do call it a 4 out of 5 skill level, and I think that's probably because of the cables. They're more unusual cables, and always if you're starting to do unusual cables, it takes a lot of concentration to start with, just to understand what the symbols mean and what you're meant to be doing. But by the time you've knitted a good chunk of it, you can get it memorized pretty easily. Certainly by the time you've knitted a back or a side or a sleeve, you have it memorized. And I even can do it now, all of it without a cable needle, which really makes it flow and more rhythmic. So the whole pattern is based on a 1x1 rib. So you can see there's a lot of stretch in it. And the cables on the outside of the diamonds here, that's a 7-stitch cable. And stitch number 4, so one of the middle ones, does something slightly strange. So it did take me a while to figure out how to do that whole maneuver without a cable needle.
Yeah, I think we had an evening of stitch number 4, didn't we?
We did.
Yes.
A frustrating evening, but I got it. And then the movement inside of the diamonds is just a series of 3-stitch cables. First of all, they all move in one direction and they move in the other, but it's quite a unique patterning, I think. I think also what's really good is if you're going to use a very dark coloured yarn like I have, it's great to have these chunky, thick cables so that you can see the texture.
Yep.
So I'm very happy with it, really enjoying it, and that's my new design. So now it's your turn.
You're finished, dolls.
I am.
Yeah. I was thinking I could insist on getting equal time.
Would you have enough to say?
I could say plenty. my adventures of knitting up this cardigan. Okay, so this is the Carbeth cardigan by Kate Davies. I think we saw this last week. I did also say last episode that it was just a standard construction that was completely wrong.
Yes.
And you didn't correct me at the time. No. I figured that out, actually. It's not a standard construction. I don't know how the construction works. I'm not up to that yet. We'll look at that, and I'm sure you'll be
relying on my advice, will you?
Yeah, you'll be driving, and I'll be sort of doing the engine bit.
Okay.
That's the way I see it. So there's the body. There's lots of work done there, which is a really good thing.
This is the back and two sides.
Back and two sides.
Up to the armholes.
Here's one sleeve, also up to an armhole.
You hold that bit.
All right, I can hold that bit.
Yeah.
So it's done. I have to say my gauge is smaller, so it's tighter than it should be according to the pattern. So we've gone up a couple of sizes, and we're measuring, and I actually tried the sleeve on today.
Did you?
Yeah, well, it sort of fits me, goes up,
Would you like to wear it?
No.
It might be a bit cropped for you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to do the Bauchfrei. Sorry, the belly button.
Yeah, Bauchfrei is German.
Yeah, German for belly button.
Okay.
Top.
So, yeah, we need to make sure that the top of the sleeves is wide enough because that turns into the yoke and has to go over the shoulders. So that's why we're constantly measuring.
What I really should do is just read through the pattern before I go any further.
That's always a good idea.
That's a good idea. Here's my second sleeve. I did think maybe I would get this finished while you were telling us about
plying.
Plying and everything, where the yaks are grown and how to shave a yak and all those things. But no, I didn't quite get it finished. But it does come along nice and quickly. Fleece and Harmony yarn here, which is really nice to knit with. And thank you to everyone who agreed and just confirmed that this is orange and not red.
On we go, heel for heel and toe for toe. On and on we go, off from Barry's wedding. Plenty herring, plenty meal, plenty pig to fill her cradle. Plenty bonny barns as well, that's the toast from Barry.
Hi, I'm Amanda Barsonis from Prado de Lana Sheep Farm here in the United States. Along with my husband Alberto and our two children, Sammy and Noelia, we raise a flock of Romneys, Lincoln Longwools, and CDM Rommaldales. We started our flock about 4 years ago when we were living on a large estate that Alberto was managing in Pennsylvania. Week after week, the fields were just being mowed, so it was really disheartening and such a shame to see the fields not being put to better use. And being that Alberto and I both have agricultural degrees and both have family members who have farmed, it didn't seem too much of a stretch for us to be able to start our own flock. So that summer we really researched a lot of different breeds and kind of determined the qualities that we were looking for in a breed of sheep, and finally decided on the Romney. For several different reasons, the Romney was just kind of the perfect breed of sheep for us in that they are a large breed and they are very docile and easy to manage. Since Alberto and I were going to be doing most of the work ourselves, we needed a breed that was going to be easy to care for. They also don't have horns, and they are excellent mothers. They are mostly resistant to parasites and resistant to hoof rot. And they also grow a beautiful, long, lustrous fleece. And that was really important. I knew that I wanted a sheep that I could use the wool and turn it into yarn, and the Romney was perfect. And they also come in both white and natural colored, which would later on down the line be very significant to our business. From there, we found a farm in Vermont and brought home Hazel, Holly, and Fia, our first 3 Romney ewes, who we still have in our flock today. And then we added white Lincoln ewes and a Romney ram and had our first lambing season. And from there, we have grown. We have just finished our 4th lambing season, which has been great. 2 years ago, we added the CBM Rommaldales, kind of by a happy accident. The farmer that we got them from was no longer wanting to raise sheep, so they came home with us. And we have loved raising our sheep ever since. Mostly All three breeds are used for meat and for wool, so they are a dual purpose breed, which makes it great for selling breeding stock as well as having wool. And then if somebody is interested in the meat side, then we do have that option as well. Both of our Lincolns and our CVMs are rare breeds, and that's something that we think is pretty special, and we really love promoting those two breeds. They are on the endangered list from the Livestock Conservancy, and so we really feel like it's important to continue promoting those breeds as well as other rare breeds, because it's important to have genetic variation amongst the sheep breeds and to continue having as many breeds that we can possibly have. So because we have three different breeds of sheep, that means our wool is very different. Even amongst the Romney and the Lincoln, who are both long wool breeds, their wool is considerably different. So here's an example of raw Romney wool. And like I said, we shear once a year, so a Romney can grow a staple length of about between 7 and 10 inches. But for a long wool, they have an excellent amount of crib. As a hand spinner, this is kind of like a dream to spin with, especially if you're first learning. Because of the long staple length and the amount of crimp that it has, it makes it very easy to spin. And from there, it creates this beautiful, lofty, bouncy, squishy type of yarn. Romney is great for almost any garment or accessory type. It's great in that it can be worn next to skin in some cases, but also hardy enough to wear for outerwear and not have to have the maintenance upkeep that you would have to have with maybe like a fine wool. This is from our Ram Basil, and this was his clip from this year. The next type of wool we have is our Lincoln long wool, and as you can see, it's very curly. There is not much crimp to this, and it's also a very heavy wool. It has a lot of lanolin in it, but even after being washed out, the wool is still very heavy. But the beautiful thing about Lincolns is that they have gorgeous luster to their wool, so very shiny and very silky. And as you can see with their yarn, this is from our Ululu, it's very drapey. The natural heaviness of this wool gives it a beautiful drape, making it great for loose fitting garments or drapey cardigans or lovely shawls. It also has a beautiful halo to it. And this is a very durable type of wool. You won't have much pilling issues, and you won't have very many maintenance issues with this one either. And then the last type of wool we have is our CVM Rommeldale. It is a fine wool, and a full year's clipping will be maybe 4 to 5 inches, but has very fine crimp, making it super soft. And I feel like this wool is slightly different than that of like a merino or a rambouillet, in that it's very spongy and almost like Tempur-Pedic in quality. This is just beautiful and buttery to the touch, and when it's spun up, it creates a very dense, squishy yarn. The yarn is very almost Tempur-Pedic in quality as well. And because it's spun 100%, we tend to get kind of a little bit of nubbiness or natural tweediness to our CVM yarns, which I think just adds a great texture and visual stunningness to this yarn. And so we're really happy with how this turns out as well. We shear once a year, either in the spring or in the fall, depending on which group is being sheared. And when the shearer pulls that last bit of fleece off the sheep, I roll up the fleece and throw it onto the skirting table and immediately start skirting from there. It just is a good way to get that initial skirting done. From there, each of the fleeces will go into their own individual bag, and then they will be shipped off to a mill in Pennsylvania, another family-owned business that we've been using for a couple of years now. And From there, they wash and spin our yarn for us. All of our yarn is spun semi-worsted and 2-plied, and we have a range of weights fingering all the way to bulky. We don't really do any dyeing. The majority of our wool is all natural colors, as you can see here. And it's all small batch, meaning that most of the yarn comes either from a single animal or from a small group of animals. I don't blend any of our fleeces together unless they're very similar in color and texture and staple length. And all of our wool is 100% breed specific. So all of the Romney is 100%, all of the Lincoln is 100%, and all of the CVM is 100%. And so because of that, we have very special, unique, one-of-a-kind yarn. And I think our customers really like knowing where their wool comes from, who it comes from. They really like the fact that it is true to that animal, that it hasn't been blended with something else. And they also know that they can kind of follow the story of that animal from either our Instagram account or off of our website. Our goal for our business is obviously to continue providing wool from our sheep and promoting our rare breed sheep as well. We would like to continue to increase the numbers in our flock just so that we can offer more yarn to everyone out there. And so we hope that you have enjoyed listening to a little bit about our farm and learning about what we do. Thank you again, Andrew and Andrea, for having us on your podcast. We really appreciate everything that you have done for us. And so thank you so much. It was so nice to talk with you all. Bye.
That was hilarious when Amanda's daughter, I guess, disappeared amongst those sheep there, feeding them.
Yeah.
I was wondering whether she was ever seen again.
After she was swamped by the ewes.
Yeah, the ewes and that one ewe that managed to get its face into the bucket.
Greedy little ewe.
Yeah, and the big smile there. That was really cool.
I think the kids are having a fantastic experience growing up on a farm and seeing all the baby lambs being born.
Yep.
Yeah.
We first met Amanda and Alberto at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year, and we did actually do a very quick interview with them, which you can see in episode 50, which is our Edinburgh Yarn Festival episode. We saw at the time that there was a bigger story to be heard from Amanda and Alberto, so it was really great to have her on the show again.
Yeah, to hear more detail about what they're doing with their breed-specific fleeces. Yeah.
Amanda is offering Fruity Knitting patrons a 10% discount off anything in their online store. They do have all of the breeds of yarns that Amanda has just shown us in lots of different weights, including fingering and DK or sport weight, worsted and bulky. They also have roving and kits. And Andrea, I was looking at their website, and in addition to all of these yarns and the kits, they are offering a couple of rams.
So you can start your own flock?
Yeah, if you're a really dedicated knitter, it's sort of like a subscription. You know, you buy your ram and then you've got it.
So you think there's 10% off a ram?
Could be 10% off a ram. That's what I said.
Okay. But anyway, the yarns looked really beautiful.
Yeah.
But you have to leave us now because our daughter Madeline has finished her cardigan and she's going to come and show you. Okay. So you have to make space.
Off I go.
So for new viewers, this is our daughter Madeline, and she's been working on a cardigan which she's finally finished. So tell us about it.
This is my finished Audrey and Unst by Gudrun Johnston. I used Iona wool, which is made from fleeces on the Isle of Iona, which is part of the Hebridean Islands, west of Scotland. The yarn actually originally contained spinning oil still when we received it. And that means that you don't feel the true quality of the wool until after its first wash. Once the oil is washed out, the fibres relax a bit and become softer and loftier. I made a few modifications to the original design. first of all, because I want the cardigan to be warm enough, I decided to knit a higher neckline using the twisted rib stitch like I did on the hem. And I also increased the arm length to go down to my wrists.
Because it was a 3/4 design, wasn't it?
Yeah. And also the wool, it's just a wintry wool, not suitable for summer. And then I did the button bands and included 9 buttonholes. And then after that I had to go and buy some buttons. And first I bought some golden kind of lacy buttons, but later Mum and I decided it didn't really look good because it looked too prissy. So
It stood out too much, yeah.
Yeah, it just... so instead I went back to the store and bought these turquoise buttons instead. And they are the same colour, as you can see, as my cardigan, with a bit of variety in strength of colour and a little bit of pearly white on some of them.
I think they look really good. They look sort of... I like the way it just blends in with the same colour, but they still look elegant.
Yeah, and I mean, they've got a slight shimmer to them, and like you said, they don't stand out, but I still think they look pretty. So then I had to sew on the buttons, which was a new and handy skill for me to learn. It did involve a bit of pricking myself in the finger, though.
The worst bit is when you get you prick underneath your fingernails. Did you ever do that?
Oh, no, thank God, no.
That's awful.
No, I can imagine.
Because there's 4 little holes here, so you have to first do 2 holes and then the other 2 holes when you're sewing up, because it's quite a lot of sewing up with these buttons.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've done a great job.
jumper.
It fits really well. It's such a hot day today, so she's not wearing it today, but straight after this I'll just show you a quick bit of footage that we filmed in the garden.
Yeah, it was 30 degrees.
So just tell our long-term viewers what you've been up to in the last couple of months.
So the past few months I've been working in a crèche. It's multilingual and I speak English with the children. The children are aged 1 to 3. And it's really great fun, even though it can be exhausting. But the downside is that there's a lot of germs going around, and you, especially as a beginner, like a newbie, you get sick a lot. I'm sick again, as you can hear. I'm hoarse.
Almost every 2 weeks you come home with a cold, don't you?
Yeah, unfortunately. And apart from that, I decided a while back that I wanted to start studying psychology this year. So I've applied to a few different universities and I'm now really impatiently waiting for news.
To see which one you've got into.
Yeah. And so the thing is, in Germany, there is only a limited number of psychology
positions in universities.
Well, not positions, but places.
Yeah, places.
For psychology students in German universities. So it's not that easy to get into, and the universities all have varying but relatively high cutoff marks, which is why I've applied all over Germany. So my favourite university at the moment is the University of Ulm. It is one of Germany's younger and smaller universities with about 10,000 students. And Ulm itself is also a small city in Baden-Württemberg, and has a population of about 120,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
and it's also
the birthplace of Albert Einstein.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I think going to a small university is good because it means that you'll get a chance to know all your lecturers, and you might even get to know them personally, which is so much nicer.
Yeah, take him out for coffee.
And get to know the other people in your class.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
why
cool.
Ulm is one of my favourites.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us and showing us your cardigan. So we do have some wool for a Marie Wallen Fair Isle jumper for you, so you might try that next.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sullivan, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about my latest knitting pattern design, which is called That Night There Were Roses, and it's this shawl that I'm wearing right here. So as well as being a knitting pattern designer, I'm actually a yarn dyer. I spend a lot of time dyeing yarns for my company Sweet Paprika Designs that I run with my sister Elizabeth. And so often my patterns are inspired by the yarns that I'm working with in the dye pot, and that's definitely the case for this particular one. We have been doing these mini skein gradient kits. There's one here, I hope you can see. The past year or so I've been working really hard to develop ones that provide a very smooth gradient color transition throughout the 6 skeins that are in each kit. And so I just wanted to show off what you could do with one of these sets, and that's where this pattern came from. So it uses a set that goes from this bright red down through almost black there, and the shawl uses this very simple lace pattern alternated with some garter stitch sections, and it's shaped with short rows. I knew I wanted a crescent shaped shawl because I find them a bit easier to wear, so I ended up actually doing this very long cast on edge in the brightest color of red that goes all the way along the inside edge of the crescent. And then you simply start in the middle. You put most of the stitches on stitch holders on both sides, and you knit along here and gradually add more and more stitches back in as you work with the darker and darker colors and get down to the edge of the crescent. And then the bottom edge here is knitted on edging here. So that's a bit about the construction of the shawl. As I mentioned, it uses our mini skein sets that have 6 little skeins in each of them. You could knit this with any fingering weight yarn that you have, 6 different colors and about 80 to 90 yards in each color. So I really love it in the gradients, but it could also be really fun to do a kind of scrap project to use up sock yarn ends and kind of play with the color placement to create different effects. The colors that we have in the crescendo sets, so I have this very dramatic one here. This is a bit more playful one called Daydream, and we have 12 in total different color options that we have available. So there's a couple more examples here. This one goes from a bright yellow green to a dark green. This one's a teal to a navy. So I think that's about it for what I wanted to say about the pattern, except that I wanted to mention the inspiration for the name. I was finishing up the pattern and I was thinking about how it has this kind of romantic, dramatic, almost nostalgic feel to it. And it reminded me of this album by Regina Spektor, who's a musician that I like. And she has this portrait of herself in the liner notes that also has this kind of feel to it and has the roses there. And this is called Black Rose in the color name. And so I actually ended up taking the name from a song on the album called Sellers of Flowers that has the line in it, "That night there were roses." So I think that's it for now. I really hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit about my pattern. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you, Debbie. That looks like the perfect shawl for a summer evening over a dress.
It's very pretty, and it looked really pretty over her black dress.
Yep, just adds a little bit of elegance if you're going out for dinner or just having some special occasion.
And the colourway too, particularly the one that she used, the dark red.
That's right, that's the
pink
black rose
black.
Colourway.
That was stunning.
Yeah,
in fact, a lot of their gradients are really smooth. I was really impressed.
I think they've done that really well, and it's really nice to have the shawl and the colourways matching together. You know, it takes advantage of it. Debbie and her sister are offering Fruity Knitting patrons a 25% discount off the shawl, which is called That Night There Were Roses, and also off the Crescendo gradient kits, so the mini skein gradient sets, which the pattern was created for. They do have really beautiful colorways. I checked out the website and there are some very different things and very beautifully done. So check that out, and a big thank you to Sweet Paprika Designs. We do ask that if you enjoy the show and if you're a regular viewer or maybe you've caught up over a couple of binge sessions, if you find the show valuable, then please support the production by becoming a patron. We do need patron support to keep us going, and you can become a patron and enjoy some really great rewards for just a small amount each month.
And to all the viewers who are already supporting us as patrons, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
We are now up to our interview with Åsa Tricosa. A couple of weeks ago, we actually drove to Åsa's home, which is just near Erfurt in Germany. It's a fair way away, It took us quite a while to get there. We filmed the interview, and Åsa was very kind to invite us to stay for dinner with her and her husband Knut.
Yeah.
It was midsummer on that day, which is a bit of a special festival for the Swedes, so that was a really lovely occasion.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. After that, we went and stayed in a guest house, which you had booked for us because we knew we would be too late to come home. And
that was in the middle of a forest.
It was right in the middle of the forest. When I woke up in the morning, there was a wild boar on a spit cooking. So I was really tempted to stay for lunch. But we went out and did the filming for the extreme knitting, and that's what you saw at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, with the castle ruin Liebenstein.
Yeah.
So it was a busy weekend. But Åsa Tricosa is a lot of fun, so you're going to enjoy the interview. And I often use Madeline as a little bit of a guinea pig. So during the first part of the interview, Åsa goes through the steps of the Ziggurat method. And because Madeline is an inexperienced knitter, I put her down in front of the interview and said, tell me if you understand the steps. And her feedback was she was a little bit confused at first, but then she found it really interesting and it sort of came together as it went on. So if you're feeling slightly overwhelmed at the beginning, just stick with it and you'll understand it. If you're somebody who loves a good puzzle, I think you'll find this method immediately attractive. Another thing, the way Åsa has arranged her books with the patterns inside, you can mix and match different design details like a pocket from this design and a double knitted hemline from that design and apply them to whatever design you want, so you can really modify your garment. Åsa is offering Fruity Knitting patrons a 25% discount of all the patterns in her Ravelry store. And before Åsa developed her Ziggurat method, she was designing a lot of amazing shawls and gloves and hats, and they too have a focus on unusual and tailored construction. So you'll find a beautiful and varied collection of patterns in Åsa's Ravelry store to choose from. And now we're going to say goodbye. So enjoy the interview.
Yep. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you in another 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye. Welcome to Fruity Knitting. I'm here with the Swedish knitwear designer Åsa Söderman, who's better known in the knitting world as Åsa Tricosa. And we are right in the centre of Germany, near a city called Erfurt, and that's where Åsa and her Danish husband live. So Åsa has always been attracted to clever solutions and designs. Not only is she a strong advocate of top-down and seamless knitting, she's developed her very own technique of top-down seamless sweater construction called the Ziggurat method. So she's been developing this method for years, and the result is this beautiful new book which has recently been published. So that's going to be the focus of today's interview. So thank you so much, Åsa, for inviting us into your really beautiful home and for spending time on the podcast telling us about your very interesting ideas.
I'm excited that you are here and very welcome to Tieftal.
Good, thank you. So the top-down seamless Ziggurat method is your signature technique. Can you just give us a brief summary of what the Ziggurat method involves? Because there is a lot of top-down seamless construction. So give us a summary of your method. We can go into the details later in the interview. And tell us why you felt the need to develop this method, and also how did you come up with such an extraordinary name, Ziggurat?
I will try. I chose top-down for top-down enthusiast. I don't have to sing the praises of top-down, but I will sing it a little bit. It is that you can try it on as you go. You don't invest all the knitting and all the seaming and all the blocking until you can actually figure out whether something fits or not. Many knitters have fear of sweaters. I had that fear too. And I tried bottom up and didn't work. So I wanted to do top down.
Yeah.
I found Tulia Salmela's tailored sweater method with beautiful sleeve caps and so on. However, it has little pieces that you join. And I have, from knitting from the beginning of designing shawls, etc., I enjoy the integrity of the skein. I wanted to keep the skein. So I developed a method where you can work your way around seamlessly, but also you can have shaping. You know, we have neck shaping and shoulder shaping. It's not just blocks of things.
Yeah.
So it's a tailored method, all in one, no cutting of the thread if I don't have to. I'm a bit obsessed about that. So can I just say, just if you have a sweater like this one here, you have a cast on with one end, and then if you knit it from one cone of yarn, just a big 500 grams, let's say, and you knit all the way down, you have another piece of thread here, that's two ends, and then you pick up here to work the sleeves, because you've already worked the caps. So you have two sleeves, so that's two ends there, so 6 ends in total to weave in, if you knit it with one cone of yarn.
Okay, so that's it in a nutshell.
Yes.
So what about the name? Because that's pretty extraordinary.
Yes, Ziggurat. Well, it's zigging and zagging. So I was looking for things with zigzag, but there are hundreds of those. And then I came upon these ancient Mesopotamian temples that are ziggurats, and they're built in steps and zigzags. I mean, it's for enlightenment and some things like this. I figured I can borrow this name, cultural appropriation probably, and that's how it came out. There's a small anecdote about it in the book.
Okay. So you just before mentioned Tulia Salmela's tailored sweater method as an inspiration, and Elizabeth Zimmerman also was an early advocate of seamless and unusual constructions. So the way you think about your knitting or your design process, has that been heavily influenced by other designers?
Not really, it is Tulia's. And I would guess, because other people have told me, that maybe she has been influenced by Zimmerman or Walker, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's really Tulia's method that I found and then developed into this
further
seamless thing.
Great.
I like to make up my own things. I just like to make up my own things.
So you're an independent thinker.
Well, maybe not thinker, doer, independent maker.
Doer. Okay. So maybe a little bit impatient, just want to get straight into it.
I do.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty details of the method. So can you take us through the steps, because I think there's about 7 steps of a typical ziggurat sweater.
Yes. Well, at least there are 7 setup steps, and then you just finish like any top-down sweater, I would guess. Because it's a one-piece thing, you're going to have to work your way around places. So now I'm going to show you how to get from one point to the next. Step 1 is always a cast on and right back shoulder with shoulder shaping, and you're beginning to shape the back neck here. That's step 1. From the finished setup, steps 1 through 5, the white here is step 1.
Okay, so that's the shoulder, and the back's going to grow out in this direction.
The back here and the fronts come here.
Yeah.
So you see, you're going to have to get to these places at some point. Right. Step 2 is, from step 1, you work your way over to the left back shoulder, and you work the left back shoulder with shoulder shaping and neck shaping. So now you have step 1 and 2. The white piece here is step 2, the little shaped back there.
Yeah.
From
so
the
can
whole
we
piece.
just see step 1 next to it and then step 2?
Yes.
Okay, so step 1, you're doing all of this across
You cast on.
there.
You cast on here.
Yeah.
And then you come back, to work this.
Okay, great.
Step 3 is the simplest step of this strange setup. It's back and forth across the back. And why you continue for a bit here is to build up. This is half your sleeve cap that is going to come here and half a sleeve cap over here. So you're building the width of the sleeve cap, or half the width, actually.
Yeah.
So that's just back and forth. That's simple. Here's a texture pattern, so you need a diagram for that, but it's a simple thing to do. Then you need to work your way up to the left shoulder. And this is tricky, right? You don't have any stitches there. So here you're working your way, knitting or purling, whatever. It's a wrong side row. And to get here, you now pick up stitches here for the first half of the left sleeve cap. That brings you to the right front shoulder.
Okay, and that's
Or left front shoulder,
That's what that is there.
Yes, that is what that is there. You have picked up those stitches. Now you leave this to the side. This is where things sometimes go wrong for knitters. But you leave this aside, and now you're only going to work the front. Left front shoulder. Let me find that. That's here, on this piece here. You have picked up stitches here, and you are knitting the front here.
Okay.
Only the front, left front. And at the end of that step, you are going to work your way around to the right front shoulder.
And do the same thing.
And do the same thing. To get around this way, you're going to pick up stitches here for the second half of the sleeve cap. Now you have a full sleeve cap set up there. And you work your way around here, pick up for the first half of the right sleeve cap. Now you are at the right front shoulder. You leave this aside and you knit only the right front shoulder. This is the right front shoulder that you are now working.
Okay.
And at the end of that, you want to start going back and forth. But to complete the steps 1 through 5, you now work your way also on a wrong side row to here, and you pick up the second half of the right sleeve cap, knit across what you already picked up, or a purl if it's a wrong side row, and you work your way all the way around like that. Now you have done your setup. You have your sleeve caps set up. So the increases for the sleeves that will grow out here will be between these 2 markers and these 2 markers.
Okay,
So
I see.
That's steps 1 through 5. And now you start step 6 like that, and you are working your way back and forth. And as you are working your way back and forth, you're increasing for the sleeve. And this is now a cardigan with an overlap, so I don't have neck shaping on this one. But if we are working a sweater, you are also increasing for the neck here.
Okay.
So on one row, you increase for the neck and the sleeve
cap.
And then you usually just purl back, do nothing.
Okay.
And then you do that depending on what you are going to knit, of course. If you're going to knit a high neck, you cast on here quickly and you start working in the round and still increase for the sleeve caps, that you have here. You still keep increasing. If you want a lower neck, you increase more slowly, more slow neck shaping here, and you cast on to close to work in the round further down.
Right.
Or you could do a V if I just continue down here, and then you close it with a V. Now, if you do a cardigan, something else happens. For this cardigan, it's very simple, the one that is hanging on here too.
Yeah.
At step 4, the left front, you actually cast on the front stitches that will be here. So you pick up stitches for this with this, and then you cast on, and then you knit this piece. And that's what's been happening here. And on the right front shoulder, you do the same thing, you cast on. So that's for a very simple cardigan.
Okay, so all of the drama happens at the beginning.
Yes, and that's where, the pickups are a bit strange because here it's built in a textured pattern, but on a plain, and I like plain knitting a lot, even if it's boring knitting, you can read when you do boring knitting, you get this nice little shape, it looks like a faux seam.
Yeah.
So it's important that the pickup is very neat.
Okay.
And that the slipping of stitches that creates that seam is neat. So those are the steps 1 through 5, and 6 starts the increases, and at the end of step 6, you separate for the sleeves. So at that point you put the sleeve stitches on stitch holders, or these that are, you can just slide them onto these, and then you can slide them back. and you cast on for the underarm, and you finish the body. From this point, it's very much like any top-down method, I would guess. Maybe even here. I haven't knitted other top-downs now because I like mine. I probably should, to pick up some tips. But this is the same. From here, you do waist shaping, pockets, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And you finish to here, and then, of course, you slide these over to a needle, and you pick up stitches here, and now you're knitting your sleeve.
Right. Okay.
A caveat. Because the whole idea for me is to use as much of the yarn, or not waste yarn, also not to run out of yarn, I think that came with, when the knitting boom started again, with all the hand-dyed, it's not as if you can go and get more skeins.
Exactly.
You have what you have, and also you maybe have paid
a lot
dear
of money,
a lot of money for it. It's an
Yeah.
investment,
Yeah.
also of the time. So at this point, usually I will knit the sleeves before I finish the body, because then I know I have enough yarn for the
Yeah.
sleeves,
Yeah.
and then I will adjust maybe the
Yeah.
length a little bit for the body in case, it's getting
Yeah.
tricky. I'm looking. So I usually finish the sleeves at that point, but that's a choice. Or you can finish the sleeves just before you're done. If you notice that you're running out of yarn,
Yeah. Yeah.
knit the
Okay.
sleeves.
I can see here, this is very colourful. Is that taking us back to the first few
The steps.
Steps,
Yes,
yeah.
this is me trying to illustrate to knitters who haven't done this. I mean, every knitter thinks in a different way, right? Mm-hmm. Every knitter's brain is different. I've tried diagrams, I've tried sketches. Yes.
They're all the steps, aren't they? So the first step would be the grey. That's
grey.
step one.
Cast on, right back shoulder,
Yeah.
and then work your way over to work step 2, which is yellow.
Okay. That little bit there.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that's that left back shoulder. And then you work back and forth for step 3,
Okay.
building the back and the first half of the caps. You're making space for that.
Yeah. Yes.
At the end of step 3, that's really the first tricky bit, because now you're going to somehow get over to left front.
And that is the dark pink, the magenta.
Yes, well, you are.
Is it?
No, you're still.
You're still
at
on
this
the
point,
white.
You're still on the white. I've
Yeah.
tried. It's small here, but everything that is step 3 is
Yes, I
white.
see, yeah.
So you work your way over here, and these are the picked up stitches
yeah.
there.
Great. Yeah.
And then you stop there, and you loop the cable and pick up stitches. That's the magenta.
Yeah.
Step 4, pick up the stitches, work the front,
Yeah.
back and forth, just back and forth. There's a little tiny bit here, like that. And then when on the final row of that, you're now going to have to work your way over
And that's
to
the orange.
yes,
Yeah.
that's the orange. But you're still on step 4. So here's the magenta working its way around like that. And now you pick up with magenta, you can see if you look.
Okay. Yes.
The stitches for the first half of that cap. Leave that aside, pick up stitches for the right front. Work the right front.
In the orange.
In orange, and it's just going to be a piece like that. You don't have this, like the edge there.
Mm-hmm.
It's no stitches there. On the final row of that, you are now going to pick up the final or last half or second half of the right sleeve cap. You have your markers in place for the sleeve cap. Work your way around here, and now all the stitches are on one.
Brilliant.
And you're done.
Wow.
You can have a glass of wine, but not too much.
So the drama is all in this tiny
It
little
is.
bit.
It is
And then
actually.
it's free sailing.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Almost. Okay, great.
okay.
But with this method, you've actually been able to do some very clever design details you were showing me before, like your lined pocket. So
My lined pocket.
show us that.
Yes, okay, I'll show you the lined pocket. I'll show the most complicated lined pocket.
Yes, do that.
This is not for the. This is for the intrepid knitter, I would
Okay.
say. This is a double knitted pocket. You pick up stitches and work this band first, which is the same as the button band, which I will show you in a minute. Then you work up the stitches. You pick up stitches along here, and then you're doing a double knitted pocket. You see,
Okay.
so it's all. worked in.
And see, the pocket is done in double knitting.
It is done in double knitting.
Very clever.
And this is a special decrease or closing. You're attaching this band as you knit the rows down. And it gives this nice, now I have pulled it there, but it gives a nice stitch definition there for that. So that's one pocket, but I'm wedded to pockets. May I show you another pocket?
Yes.
This is one of the first pockets. This is a very tatty sweater because I've worn it a lot. It's messing about in boats. And this pocket is knitted with increases in the round as you go. So at some point here you have very long rows because this is what your knitting will look like as you're increasing for the pocket.
Okay.
So you're knitting.
So it's like a sleeve cap, isn't it?
It is a bit of a sleeve. Yes, you're increasing, and then you just fold it in like that.
Yeah.
Now, a nice little accident with this is that even though it has no waist shaping, it goes in at the waist
because of the pocket.
So it gives you a waist whether you have one or not, which is quite nice.
Lovely, great.
So that's the one pocket. I have millions of pockets. No, not millions, but 5. I have a little bit of a pocket obsession. Okay, so that's the pockets. Can I show you also the bust dart?
Yes, show us that.
In stripes, it's sometimes difficult to get a bust dart going without it showing in the stripes. So here I have worked a bust dart. If you look closely, I don't know, you can see it, but when you wear it, you don't really see this.
Okay, let's have a look at it straight first.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So there it is there.
Yes.
Yeah, very clever.
And then I've added, because this one was knitted for my mother who sits in a wheelchair, she wants things to not ride up in the back. So I actually used the 2 bust darts also for the back on that one.
Okay.
Do you see how it hangs down there?
Yeah.
So they're 2,
but
they're sort of hidden in.
Yeah,
things.
short rows.
So that's
great. Good. Well, you also teach the Ziggurat method in workshops, and so you have real personal contact with knitters who are learning the technique. So what are the initial challenges that they face, and what do you tell them?
I tell them to have faith, first of all. In my Ravelry group, there's a recurring line, which I love, and they're very friendly and help knitters. They say, close your eyes and knit. Basically, you just have to trust that it's going to work out in the end. So the great challenge is that it's unconventional steps, I think. The neatness of the picking up of the cap stitches is a very hands-on thing. Where exactly do you pick them up?
Yeah.
And I like that with the workshop that you can actually show in real time how to do it and where it goes wrong.
Okay. But you probably go into that in your book, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that I've finally been able to explain it at length there because there's no room for that in the patterns otherwise.
So far, the 2 things I have to know is to just have blind faith at the beginning.
It will work.
And believe it'll work. Just keep following what it says, even if it doesn't seem to be logical. And to watch the picking up of the stitches on the caps.
There's another thing I like to do also. And that is, it's not particular to Ziggurat, it's particular to any sweater knitting, I think. And that's how to choose a size.
Yeah, that's important.
And you choose based on your shoulder measurement, not the bust, because busts vary a lot.
Yes, on a little frame.
And it will look strange if you, and with Ziggurat or any other top-down, I would guess too, you can always accommodate the bust later. It's important that the fit, if you're knitting a tailored set-in sleeve, that sits where it should.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can have then also, of course,
dropped
and all of that, and it's not as crucial, but it's still important to choose that size. And then we can do things with darts or build more space here to accommodate a larger bust. There's ways
or
to...
a larger upper arm.
Or a larger upper arm.
Has to
absolutely.
Fit.
Yes, absolutely. And I could say that too.
Yeah.
Now in the patterns it will tell you how many stitches to pick up and how often to increase, of course. But of course you can pick up more stitches. You can always squeeze in more. And that's something you learn as a knitter where, if you are adapting patterns.
Okay, so I've got another question, and that is, do you feel like you could still develop more within this technique? Like, do you feel like you could use the Ziggurat technique on all over cabled or all over lace designs?
Yes.
Yes?
Well, actually, already one designer colleague, a fellow designer, Anne Kingston, has done a lace Ziggurat, a beautiful one in her book.
Anne Kingston is a UK designer.
Yes. And I probably won't, well, I do have a lace cardigan sort of in my hand, but the next book, if there will be one, is, or my next collection will be color work and all over cables.
Okay.
And I swatched for a cable many years ago, and I still hope I can do that. It's a large repeat, so I'm not sure I can actually do that. We'll see.
Fantastic. Well, look, let's show the viewers, because I'm sure they're really interested, some of the designs that are in your latest book.
Okay, let's do that. I want to start with showing you the one that's been behind us. It's Mayhem. It's in the book, but it was also published before the book was published. This is a good design to start with if you're new to Zigguratting.
Yeah.
And why is that? Well, there's no neck shaping in the front. There's also no body shaping. It's a very plain, straightforward cardigan, even though it has an interesting texture pattern, which is simple. It's just a 4-row pattern. So it's easy to do. And I want to show you the back. There's a bit of movement here, and that's because of an invisible gather that you work in here. It's just a simple increase of stitches, and it works into the texture, so you can't even see it. But I've added about 18 stitches, I think.
Wow, that's clever. So it fits really nice and neat on the
Here,
shoulders.
and then has a little bit of swing here, because it's cropped, and also because I have a behind. So it doesn't sit on your butt. Well,
That's great, because you can't even see it.
No, it's hidden. Also on this one, which you don't have to knit, is a single layer pocket. I don't like to add bulk right here, so many of my pockets are this. This is not double knitted, by the way. It's a flap pocket that you attach as you go, so you don't have to learn double knitting for this one.
Okay, and it's so cute in another colour.
Yeah, it's just a little peekaboo thing there.
Yeah, lovely.
With this design, Du Salon, I wanted to show you just how the basic button bands work. And they are built in, like everything else in Ziggurats. And already in step 4, you cast on provisionally for the button band. And it's knitted along with the front. You attach it along the back, knitting attach along the back.
Yeah.
And then you knit it along with the right front. And then you do the shaping, and they are knitted along with the body. So you get an even tension that works with the body. You don't have any pucker. And for the buttonholes, you have consistent spacing, because you can decide to space them every 14th row, for example. And
Cool.
they will just be in the right space.
And I love, again, the use of colour. Great.
This is a design that looks fairly simple. It is fairly simple. It's a variation on the simple Ziggurat, which was one of my first things, my first designs. The yarn is what does the talking. It's from Little Grey Sheep. And here there are some clever details for the advanced knitter, I should say.
On the neckline.
On the neckline, you pick up stitches, and then you pick up another layer of stitches behind, and you double knit it very short, because I just wanted to keep it simple. You have a little cable, colored cable going there, or stitch, and then you close it off with a 3-needle bind off.
That's very clever, because it also gives it some stability, doesn't it? And you've got that
And it doesn't roll.
And you've got that light grey here as a touch.
Yeah,
Very
this is just
clever.
like a little inside thing. And you have here another of those peekaboo pockets. It's constructed a bit differently than from the Mayhem one that we looked at earlier, but it's still not a double knitted pocket. It's still just a flap pocket, so you don't have to do double knitting there.
And this hem, is that?
That is a double knitted hem. It doesn't have to be double knitted. You can knit the layers separately. There's a detailed description also in the tutorial section of the book on how to pick up stitches for the lined hem. So you pick up stitches, and you can knit the layers separately if you want, and then do a 3-needle bind off there too. This is because I like plain knitting.
Yeah.
But it rolls if you leave it, so
Yeah.
you need something to stabilize it.
And we have to talk about this sleeve because it's really spectacular. It's really simple but really elegant.
Thank you. This is also little grey sheep yarn, and when you pick up the cap stitches for this one, you pick up just 2 stitches in a contrasting yarn, and then it's like a traveling cable that you can improvise as you go.
You can do exactly what you want, can't you?
Yes, I sketched mine out, but this is what it looks like on the inside.
Yeah. So it's just a little bit of intarsia going
Yes,
down.
it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a bit of intarsia, an intarsia cable that travels.
And what fun, because you could just do whatever you wanted.
Or you can do a very subtle one. A test knitter did a very tone in tone,
Okay.
just to have a little touch there.
And what about the back?
And about the back, it doesn't look like it's anything different, does it? But this is a feature in many of my sweaters. Here I add stitches for the behind. So there's some hidden, you can add 10, 20 stitches, increase, and depending on your yarn, it won't show at all. Here you can see a little bit trace. I should have maybe added them before the contrast. I usually would add them in the yarn. That happens in a lot of my sweaters.
That's just nicer on the hips, isn't it?
Yes, and also if you have, like I happen to have a sort of a curved back there, the sweaters tend to sit on your behind.
So do I.
So I just I just do.
That's a good idea.
Spread out over the back, evenly spread out, 10, 20 stitches.
So this design, it does look simple and it's got these really clever details for the more adventurous knitter. But if you were, say, a beginner knitter or for a sweater, what would you do?
It's a great design to start with, actually.
Yeah.
You would skip the pocket altogether if you don't want to try that. Thing is, why not try? I mean, what if it goes wrong? It doesn't matter. Also, because it's top down, if it goes wrong, you just frog back a couple of rows. And then you knit, and nobody will be the wiser, and you can try pocket the next time.
I just love the way the colour...
I love these little pockets, actually.
Yeah, but the way that the colour peeps out when it does that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And for the neckline, you could do just... Either you can leave it raw, because of the way it's shaped, it will just roll a little bit. Or you can do a simple rolled neckline here.
Yeah.
Pick up stitches, knit a few rounds, and then cast off with a stretchy cast off, I would say. And that's that. And you could, of course, skip the cable.
Yeah.
The lining, too, you don't have to do. You can just do a rolled hem here as well. I would go down a needle size or 2 so it doesn't roll up too much. But this isn't difficult either. I mean, just try it and see what happens.
Yes, courage. Okay, so let's have a look at another one. We've got time for one more.
Okay. And now I want to show you Cuckoo, which is the first design that appears in the book. It's a complicated design, but it's very cute. It's for the adventurous knitter, I would say. There are 2 or 3 different cable motifs. The same motif for the collar and the cuff. On the cuff they are just attached sideways cable. The collar is a special attachment method. You'll find out if you read about it. And the pocket is yet another little cable, just for fun. And here the body is kept plain, like many of my sweaters, because the yarn speaks for itself. This is Ripples Crafts.
Very beautiful green.
Now I want to show the back.
Wow.
This is super cute. Maybe a little bit too cute for me, but I like it on other people. It's a tuck that I have developed, or a box pleat, maybe you would call it, for top down. Here it's in a contrast color. This first version, without this, took 5 needles. And to describe that was very difficult. Now I'm down to 2 needles. I'm very proud of that. I'm happy with that. So, and it gives it a bit of a swingy shape here.
It's beautiful. What I really love is how you've used 2 variations on this sort of purple magenta colour. So you've got the darker one on the hem, but the lighter one on the body parts.
Yes, you could even do 2 different or same.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, look, we have to finish the interview now. We've been chatting here all afternoon, enjoying ourselves. I want to go back to the book. And also, I have to let you know that Åsa's other hobby or passion is cooking. So we are going to get together and enjoy some of that, Andrew and I, with Åsa and her husband afterwards. So I'm looking forward to that. But before we finish, there's just one more question, and I want to go back to your beautiful book. You've been working on it now for 2 to 3 years, so you must be really happy and proud that it's finally finished and looking so good. What are the aspects about the book that perhaps you're most proud of?
First of all, that we survived making it.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful book. It's much more beautiful than I thought it would be, and I've had wonderful response, which makes me very happy. There's always things wrong with books, but I've had great response so far. And I think it's fantastic, and that's not down to me, that's to the team.
And I noticed that you've got some really interesting charts in here. So, yeah, do you want to say something about that?
I do, because the charts are a little bit of my trademark for the Ziggurat method. And they developed first for myself, so I could see what to knit. They're a helpful tool. Some people are afraid of charts. You don't have to look at the chart. Just read the instructions. It's all in the instructions. But for people who like charts and who knit from charts and who like to adapt and modify patterns, they're a gift. That's the feedback I get from Ziggurat knitters, and people use it. The chart is always the same for every Ziggurat. The sleeve increases are always in red, the neck increases are always in green, and the body increases down here, they're always in blue. So you'll always find your way in the chart. In the instructions, that's also in red, blue, and green font. So you will always know where you are. And it's a very helpful tool, but you don't have to use it if you don't like charts. You'll just close that page and go to something else.
And you've got some good tutorials too in the back of the book.
I'm really happy that we have so many tutorials in here, because of course everybody cannot take a workshop, and the best way is to learn in a workshop, but I've tried to make it workshop-like in the tutorials.
Yeah.
So here are the details for how to pick up the stitches, where to make it visually pleasing, and so it's...
And you've probably got a good Ravelry group with people helping as well.
Oh, they're wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so helpful, but so are most Ravelers.
Yeah.
Ravelry is a gift to knitters and designers. Without Ravelry, I would never have started designing.
Well, thank you so much for showing us all these details and your method on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Good.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
She's got so much more, so we might have to see some more at a later date, but it's just the tip of the iceberg of what she's shown us today. So that's really exciting. So we'll say goodbye to the audience. Bye.
Bye, and thank you.
Wait, is it on?
Okay. But this
Wait. To count silently for 3.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm like this.
Okay. With this design, Du Salat, I wanted to show you just what